marked by giant deciduous trees, magnificent conifers, and lush blankets of fern and moss. These coastal forests of North America represent a natural treasure. Nestled between the Pacific Ocean to the west and great strings of mountain ranges to the east, the old-growth forests of British Columbia are among the most ancient in the entire Northern Hemisphere. Here, time seems to have stood still in this great green cathedral. These rainforests receive generous amounts of precipitation fed from oceanic clouds trapped by the Rockies. The annual rainfall peaks during growing season. Abundant snowmelt occurs after winter, creating humid conditions that sustain a unique array of vegetation. At dawn, a misty world awakens. Often a heavy veil of fog lingers for hours. It takes some time, but the sun's rays finally cut through, revealing a breathtaking view. On this fall evening in northern British Columbia, white geese are gathered in large numbers, preparing for their annual vacation. Their migration to the warmer climate of southern Canada begins right here, this very night. On the same night, another migration is underway as well. Thousands of Pacific salmon have set out en masse from the sea, converging at the mouths of countless rivers. They're an unstoppable force of motion. Compelled by their strong desire to reproduce, the fish must undertake an astonishing upstream journey. The salmon will be guided by olfactory memory, thanks to the water's subtle scents, and return to spawn at the place where they were born. Before daylight, humans move too, taking the opposite path. They reach the wild Pacific waters, driven by Canada's west coast currents. Overhead, celestial honking resonates. The white geese are on their way south. This September night is a turning point. A change of seasons is inevitable, and the whole of nature proclaims the arrival of fall. As the new sun dawns, the misty forest seems to be holding its breath. around. The forest awakens to subtle glimmers of sunrise. The salmon's arrival is always a blessing. A white-throated dipper takes advantage of the turmoil to snag aquatic insects and small fish. As for the Bonaparte gulls, they bide their time, awaiting the corpses soon to come. Relentless on their journey, the Pacific salmon jut out of the water, driven, fighting the currents, bypassing obstacles, defying waterfalls. They endure. The salmon run is a pure glut of protein and fat that bears never miss. They must build their nutritional stores before hibernating. Each fall, the omnivorous bear becomes a fisherman. The first to arrive today is a young, solitary grizzly bear. Fishing techniques vary. One might employ patient surveillance, hunt pursuits, or scratching and clawing for a catch. But sometimes the easiest way is to lie low and unceremoniously lay a massive paw on a stranded fish. Saving energy in every way possible is essential to reach an optimal winter weight. Bears prefer salmon heads and skin, often exclusively. Eating these select parts is an efficient way of getting the most nutrient and fat-dense portions of the fish. Carcasses wash up on banks. The bear's cast-offs are by no means wasted. Sea eagles, gulls, herons, and even crows take advantage of this all-you-can-eat buffet. They tidy up nicely. Dawn stretches out. The light remains diffuse under the first raindrops of the morning. British Columbia's rainforest is aptly named. Precipitation is frequent, year-round, and generally a daily occurrence. Like other diurnal animals, sea otters are waking up under the endless rain. Before going off to hunt, they engage in the bonding rituals of grooming and play which maintains social ties and keeps them healthy. Each day, the Earth absorbs the sun's heat. At night, this heat condenses, in part creating the humidity that will generate the morning fogs. At dawn, the rainforest is enshrouded in mist. The suspended water particles reduce visibility, but this also helps to broadcast sounds over greater distances. Little by little, the forest and fjords are filled with the song and chatter of many creatures. Raucous cries from crows pierce the air. They converse through the fog to inform others of their whereabouts. Warnings, territorial claims, and matters of defense are all shared in these dialogues. A new howl rings out through the mists. Wolves are returning from their nocturnal hunts, solitary and dispersed. Their howls reveal their positions and help the pack to reassemble for communal sleeping. Humidity influences British Columbia's coastal forest down to the smallest of life forms. Bryophytes, a class of flowerless plants that produce spores rather than seeds, abound everywhere, growing on trees, branches, and rocks. These primitive plants capture nourishment from the ambient mists, and they also play a vital role in ecosystem regulation. The early sun begins to pervade the layers of fog and mist, finally reflecting off the ocean's vast surface. Dawn is a time of many transitions. Some species return after a night of hunting, while others are just beginning to fish for their breakfasts. When night draws to a close, patches of zooplankton still linger at the water's surface, a living mass of floating microorganisms. As daylight grows, the microscopic animals retreat to deeper waters. Predators will also become scarce until the following night. Different animals employ a variety of fishing tactics. When black guillemots spot schools of herring, they surround them. Taking advantage of the fish's instinct to remain in tight formations, they've only to throw themselves into this dense mass to come away with an easy meal. But all their herding and commotion draws the attention of other predators. Humpback whales jump at the opportunity to devour the corralled herring. As for the black guillemots, they have to start all over again. After having hunted all night long offshore, sea lions return to dry land. They'll spend the entire day resting on exposed rocks. Depending on the tide, space can be limited and the best spots are highly prized. First to arrive, first to sleep. The plankton presence has waned. In turn, the shoals of fish have thinned out. Men are done fishing and return inland with full hauls. Sated, the whales hit the open water. The progression of morning brings a peaceful tone to the fjords. On the mainland, dawn's ephemeral interludes are in motion. Nocturnal and diurnal species cross paths in a brief passing of the torch. In the underbrush, birds begin singing as the raccoons are just bedding down in stump hollows or the recesses of giant cedar roots. Birds sing most prolifically in the morning. Females are more fertile then, and the air is humid so sounds travel further. The males that sing before eating are proclaiming their outstanding physical condition, thus showing females that even though they spend less time looking for food, they're strong enough to take that risk. On the river, as the morning lingers, the parade continues. Wary but tolerant, bears take over in shifts, day and night, until the abundance of the great salmon migration comes to an end. The bear population operates diplomatically by taking turns and sharing fishing spots, which results in a low-conflict system of affairs. Still, females remain cautious because solitary males can be dangerous. They will fight ferociously if their cubs are threatened. In order to avoid encountering dominant males while eating, the mothers lead their offspring away from the water's edge and into the shelter of tall cedars along the shores. The flora benefits from all the fishy remains the bears leave behind. The salmon migration is a key event in this ecozone. It forms a crucial link in the food chain and fuels a dynamic regeneration of aquatic and terrestrial systems. Caribous beetles and slugs hone in on the dead fish. Flies swarm, laying their eggs. Gastropods and insects attract birds that feed on them and their larvae. Ultimately, microorganisms finish everything off, completing the cycle of decomposition and the conversion of nutrients. As such, the fish remains feed a multitude of species, all the while fertilizing the soil. Nitrogen is taken in by the roots of tall cedars and giant thujas. The remaining elements will be captured by runoff and flow down into rivers, eventually returning to the sea. The cycle goes on and on. The salmon's migratory mission is coming to an end as they reach their destination. These gravel pits are a spawning site, and males waste no time in fertilizing the eggs which lie in depressions dug out by the females. The eggs will hatch during the coming weeks and emerge from the gravel as fry. These tiny salmon will spend the winter in the river before smolting and migrating to the ocean in the spring. They'll mature and continue the cycle as adults, returning to this place to reproduce at the end of their own lives. For salmon, this is a dead end in every way. The bacteria and microorganisms in freshwater are fatal to adult salmon, having naturally adapted to the salty environment of the Pacific. After quite literally exhausting every last bit of their energy in the course of this remarkable reproductive mission, salmon age extremely rapidly. Their scales fall away, and their flesh begins to decompose even before they die. It's a grim scene as the living spend the last of their time swimming through the corpses of their kin. Only the new generation will live on. At last, the sun begins to take command of the morning. The fog dissipates, and light appears above the canopy. Like a magic wand, it illuminates the underbrush and washes over the forest's rich colors. Though the heat produced is transient, the flora benefits greatly from this warmth. In this foggy universe, the sunshine is ephemeral. Ambient water evaporates just as new layers are forming, a constant interplay between moisture and light. The sun highlights dense seaweed growths just beneath the water's surface. Rooted on the rocky seafloor, these giant brown algae grow up to 30 meters in length. Their stipes and blades form a beautiful and curious floating assembly. Kelp forests are the aquatic equivalent of terrestrial forests. Fed by nutrients in the sea, they are home to a diversity of unique organisms which come to life as soon as sunlight reaches into the deep waters. Just like the nudibranchs. These brightly colored, soft-bodied mollusks live among the kelp, filtering water and feeding on floating microorganisms. Good locations are essential. The nudibranch doesn't hesitate to move around, crawling, floating, and swimming in water columns in search of suitable niches. Deep within the kelp forest, jellyfish are on the move. Undulating through the currents, they draw food in with their fine tentacles. Moving in tune with the sunlight's progression, otters finish their morning feast. They aren't picky eaters, and their foods consist of fish, clams, oysters, mussels, snails, and crabs, to name only a few. But they also love to eat the urchins that feed on kelp. And by controlling the urchin population, otters help sustain the underwater forest's growth. These active hunters have many clever techniques. Holding their breath, they dive backwards, plunging to depths of up to 90 meters in pursuit of prey. They snag their meals with retractable claws, which are also useful in prying open shells. Otters eat as they float on their backs, but they also drag their catches to shore, where they use stones to break open stubborn shells. Over and over, they do this surging, energetic water dance until they're finally satiated. When breakfast is over, it's time for a nap in the sun. The otter beds down in a makeshift raft of kelp, which keeps him tethered to one spot. As the sun nears its zenith, the morning comes to a close. The sky is finally clear. Bright periods never last long on British Columbia's coasts. After the mists of dawn disperse, rainy skies usually follow. So as soon as they can, wolves find spots to sun themselves. Gathering to rest, a sweet laziness overtakes the entire pack. Like the wolves, all the other creatures take advantage of the fall's fading sunshine. Soon, the Pacific coast will face the rigors of another Canadian winter. The mornings to come will be enshrouded in fog. The sun will be all but invisible. And time again will seem to stand still above British Columbia's magnificent rainforest.